6:34 on 1/11, and this will be a meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. This call is being recorded. I would just like for the record for CPC members to unmute themselves and just announce themselves so we can have that on the record.
So you're gonna do a roll call? Who's here, Rick? Is that what you're saying?
Please announce yourself.
I think you need to do a roll call. You need to call the person's name and they have to say they're here.
Let's do that. Sure, Janet Burt.
Janet Burt here.
Then we have Patricia Grutz.
Here.
And if I've mispronounced your name, please correct me.
Gruitz,
Bonnie.
thank you.
Grutz, thank you. Bonnie Anderson.
Bonnie Anderson here.
Okay, and then Alden Drake.
Alden Drake here.
Catherine Harrison.
Catherine Harrison here.
Rick Woodland here. And we have guests in the room today, Steve Poulos and Joe Casamata. Welcome to everybody on the call. We're going to do some administrative tasks first. The first one is if there's any public comment, please unmute yourself or raise your hand and you'll be recognized by the call moderator and proceed. No one's raised their hand, so we'll close the public comment section. And item 3 is we want to acknowledge the hard work and time John Cosolito spent here on the CPC, many years working with the group. He's decided to resign. He's also resigned his position on the Joint Recreation Committee. So thank you very much to John and his efforts and wish him well. And to that end, the Recreation Committee, Joint Recreation Committee should be submitting a new name to us for membership inclusion. Number 4, let's move on to the potential vote, but mostly a discussion on the job administrator, just a CPC administrator job description. And we should in your packets have some background. And what's been happening is Joe and Janet and Catherine have met a couple times as a subcommittee, and they've been putting together their thoughts and ideas on how we can make this position a reality, hopefully in time for this year's annual town meeting. So I'll turn it over to one of them, whoever wants to be the leader, and maybe give us an update and ask any questions you have.
Janet's sort of chairing. I don't know if she prefers
Give
or.
the update, or do you prefer someone else do that?
Maybe I can just ask a question. I skimmed it today. There's a 7-page survey in there. Am I understanding it correctly that you would want the CPC subcommittee to check all the boxes and define the responsibilities? So that's like an intake survey for you folks.
Sure. And I'm in the process of rewriting a lot of the job descriptions here, and this is the tool we've been using. So it's a questionnaire. You answer questions. They range from, education to IT experience, kind of add up a score at the end. And from there, you apply a score to a possible salary range.
Okay.
So that's something you want to include in the packet.
I
to be
understand better.
helpful.
Thank you.
No problem. Yeah.
And that, it came about because as in our discussions, we were talking about what we think the
Right.
salary should
Right.
be, and it was discussed that a fair salary would be possibly an equitable salary within town hall as well as within the profession. So I think there's a wage classification document of some
Yes,
sort in
yeah.
town hall. And so this was thank you, Steve and Joe, for saying this to us, so we could see where we think this
Yeah,
position
right.
would fit in that.
My impression of the responsibilities that have been laid out in a very preliminary way is that you need a person with high executive functioning skills.
There you go, Joe.
That will leave all of us out,
Yeah,
right?
no, not Joe, he's already doing it.
Maybe somebody could go, thank
Okay.
you, Alden, maybe somebody for me could go a level up and just kind of
Yeah.
review a little bit about their process and where they are. That would be great. Thanks.
You want to do that, Janet, or would you like me to do that, or what?
I'll just start it, Catherine, then you can jump in because you did some stuff that I did not do. How's that sound?
Okay.
So we got together once, Joe was great, he gave us a template, which is what he uses or is using, for jobs at town hall. That was a huge help, I think, for Catherine, who volunteered after our first meeting to put together what we had talked about. We looked at, again, Joe gave us some examples of different towns who have done this already. We looked at all of those, and we seemed like we were very much in agreement that one of the particular towns really looked like it was what Wenham was exactly looking for, except we did make some additions to that. We had some conversations. Catherine put together a draft, which we then looked at, and then we met again 2 days ago, and more or less agreed on everything that you'll see there that's on a draft. The idea being that today, the whole committee, at least all of us who are able to be here tonight, can look at this, maybe have some thoughts, and maybe, I'm just making this up, this is certainly up to Rick and the committee, maybe we would approve it at our next meeting. So Catherine put together a second draft for us, in which she also added some questions that we just had. That, what do you think about this? We're not sure, let's ask the whole committee, that kind of thing. So that's where we are right now. And Catherine, please add to that whatever I didn't say.
Okay, I'm
Or
gonna
Joe.
desperately, yeah, no, so, Janet has, summarized what we've done. I think that this is just a draft, and it is missing some information because we don't have it yet, or we need to discuss it, so I hope, again, with Janet's thoughts, that we can vote on this at a subsequent meeting. Certainly, I don't feel like we're ready to vote for tonight. Some of the things that we talked about discussing, and really maybe just at this point, updating you with information that's on here, because we don't have everyone here. But we put in a number of hours worked per week. The up to 19 hours, and I'm not going through the whole thing, I promise. Up to 19 hours was really consistent with it being a part-time position, and that it was variable. There was some discussion around that the right number, but that is a number that ties to a number that does not require any benefits if they work in town hall up to that. We did have our notion going forward is that this person would work under the direct supervision of the chairperson and the vice chairperson of the CPC, and under the general direction of the CPC as a whole. Again, discussion now or at a future time. That was just where we stood on that.
Have we been checking with other towns to see how they position the job?
Well, I should back up a little. So this job description is almost exactly, I won't say plagiarized, but drawn from mostly one other town that actually has that exact wording. And we used a third town that had some things in it that the other town didn't. So this is not new language. So it's language is already, system that's already working in some town in Massachusetts. So yeah, it probably needs a final blessing, but we think it's legal. And again, the supervision is an evaluation by the CPC chairperson or vice chairperson in conjunction with the CPC. So this is a person that technically reports directly, takes their jobs from the CPC. What else here? We had questions. We had questions, and I put this in an email, and now I'm going to be one of those people that's like, oh, I can't find that email. And I really hate that. But so the two questions, that was two of the questions. We will have some questions as we get further into the discussion about what is the process for this position to actually become real. So we have it, the CPC will, I presume, approve it or not, or amend it and approve it. And after that, it will be funded through, I believe, the administrative line of CPC funds, as they, always have that administrative line. There's some question, and I'm going to defer to whoever makes this decision, on who is there anyone else that has to approve this job description and or funding. And since CPA funds in general go to the town meeting, what would the town meeting vote look like? What would the motion look like? I think those were the major open questions we had.
Could I offer some advice on that last question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe Janet could do it, because I know she has also a relationship with Stuart. Janet, would that be something on, how to word this for the warrant that you could maybe talk to Stuart about? And what
Yeah, I
best
think that-
practices?
yeah. I think that makes sense, Alex. That's a good point because he's got the whole state picture. We had a little bit of I had a little bit of a conversation only because you may have all seen on Facebook, when something happens on Facebook, it blows up into other venues. And there was a lot of talk about, well, town hall's not open on Fridays anymore, and when do they work their hours? And I thought, oh God, we don't want to get involved in any of that because this is the first time for this. We have to do it, up to 19 hours, keeps us in the part-time position. But I think it would be nice to check with Stuart and see. I would hate to be at town meeting and have them say, well, wait, how will you know if this person's working 19 hours every single week? So we had a conversation. Catherine knows more about this than I do actually, but let's ask Stuart. I think that makes sense. Let's see what he says about how that should be worded. And then maybe if necessary, we can ask town council. Does that
Right,
make sense?
Yeah, let's get our opinion together
Yeah.
before we then go to ask Steve to go to
Right.
town council to get their opinion too. So we'll do the homework and the lifting to make, hopefully their burden a little lighter. And
All right, I
how
can
do
check.
we-
If you want me to, I can check with Stuart.
Specifically, how do we word a motion like this for the warrant for town meeting? Do we
Got it.
have to disclose hours? Can you say something like administrative position to support the CPC, boom, 50,000, whatever it is, I'm a certain number, 50,000,
Right.
whatever it is, too much anyway, but for our budget, but just how to get that to make it smooth, to go through more easily. Thank you, Jim.
I've got it. I wrote it down. I'm all set.
Thank you.
The salary is the other big option, and I know we do have this, questionnaire, thank you, that is used to inform what the salary should be, but it would be interesting to find out, what some other assistants are being paid per hour.
Right.
I presume it's hourly. That's a little bit hard I think we might ask Joe to help with that, because it's a little bit hard for just Jane citizen to call a town hall and say how much this person get paid, although it's public information. But if there's a listserv or,
Yes,
you can,
sure.
any, it would be good, but it also would be important to understand, in my opinion, how this fits within town hall, because ultimately this person is going to be working under the general umbrella of town hall.
Right.
And we don't want to pay him or her something that's way lower
know.
than someone who's doing the same job or way higher.
Okay.
So I don't know, but does that kind of information exist for town hall as it stands now? Like, are there groups and levels?
Classes
And-
of employees?
Yes, that's exactly the exercise you're doing by filling out those survey questions.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm asking is, would it be would it be possible to see that, is there a written matrix somewhere of the positions that already exist in town hall?
Yes,
And would it be possible to see that?
yes.
That'd be great. Because I looked at this and the questionnaire, and some of the questions are hard to answer, even if you're somewhat familiar with the job description. But I know what the people in town hall do, so that would just be another data point for me. So I just found that email. So salary, number of hours, who approves the final job description? What does the ATM motion look like? Those were the questions that we still had open.
And that's what you're working on.
And well, that's what we're beginning to. work
And you got the
start.
feedback tonight that you needed to move forward?
Well, that's the last
discussion, yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Are there questions? I don't know whether I'm looking at this camera, I'm looking at that camera. There's no camera there. I don't know if there's further discussion tonight, other questions.
If I can just add as well,
Yeah.
I think we'd also, talked about CPC would be sort of the immediate supervisor, the town administrator also would be the next step up if there were questions. It's important to also note that this position would fall under the umbrella of the town, like you mentioned, Catherine, sort of, would fall under the handbook as well. Employee handbook would apply to this. So just wanted to make that known as well to this employee. But yeah, we wanted to open this up for discussion.
So I think from my perspective, maybe before you're ready to present your final,
Yeah,
if you could prepare something for the packet that would have your proposal and any other outstanding questions. That way, people can have time to review it if they want to before our meeting, and then come with intelligent questions or concerns or comments.
Okay.
Did that make sense?
yes, I guess a question is based on what I would ask, that people look at what we've proposed as far as the job description, which is 99% there. And if they're, and also bring forward any comments or concerns about what's already there.
Let me reiterate that. So I hope everybody on our team heard that comment, which was, please review what's in the packet, what they've delivered so far. If you have questions or comments on it, please, I guess, email them all to one location. Would that be easiest to Joe?
Okay.
And Joe could coordinate them, because that way we won't violate any
Yeah, yeah,
laws.
yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And then, so please review them, get your input in to Joe, and then hopefully they'll have another meeting and then come back to us in a week or two
Right, and
with a firmed up
with
proposal.
answering the other questions that.
and potentially ready to vote.
Yeah,
Great.
Tricia
Right.
has a-
Oh, sorry.
Well, I
Patricia?
had a question, but I can just send it to Joe. So
Hmm,
we're good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bonnie Anderson as well.
Please, Bonnie.
Just a clarifying point. I heard, I'm looking through and I don't see the number $19 an hour and I just might be missing it. Did I hear that correctly? That's what,
No, it's 19 hours.
right, 19 hours per week.
No more than.
No, up to 19 hours.
thank
With
you.
the idea that this would be a part-time position, so it could not be more than 19. We don't have any salary listed in here at all.
Okay. Thank you. That answers my question.
Just something to think about when you're coming up with hours is the budget that's available. So you're capped at the 5%, which is about $34,000.
5%, yeah.
And, so that only, that's to pick up the salary and also any associated costs with, legal fees with CPA, any public outreach. Things like that.
So I guess it'd be interesting, and again, this is information, I don't know who has it, that's the only reason I'm bringing it up here. I would be interested to know what the costs, minus this person, for the CP, the actual costs have been. In the past
I
few
can
years.
get that to you.
Okay.
I have that
Cause that,
deep down in here.
then
Yeah,
we
I got
know-
it yesterday.
we know what to
Yep.
subtract.
Yeah.
Okay,
That, and the other thing is, I don't know if it's possible. One thing in my head is, this is not gonna be an up to 19, it's gonna be up to 19 hours, but probably 19 hours just during this time of year. So is there a way we can do some kind of chart based on experience? I know we don't have a lot of experience, and maybe what other towns say is like, what's the busy season? What's the slow season? So we can do a better analysis of how much the annual payment to them would be in salary.
Mhm.
Cause like, if we try to cost it out at 19 times $20 an hour times 52 weeks,
You're
not
over.
real.
no,
You're over.
no.
Right,
And
we're
it's
over,
not
and it's not
realistic
real.
anyway, yeah.
Right?
So
And that
more
would
of
be
a
on.
seasonal job.
Yeah, right? Cause like in the summer, we're not gonna really have much need for them,
Right,
their support, but as soon as we get into September, that's when state forms are due, money comes in from the state. The final distribution is given, all that stuff ties together, then pre-applications go out, that has to be monitored, that's when it picks up, and then I think it
Right.
slows down after town meeting,
right.
okay? That would be
Look, I
helpful.
wonder if is it just a thought, is it possible that this could be a 10-month job? That's sort of a typical thing sometimes. If you did it as a 10-month job, you'd be a little more specific in the people who might apply.
Yeah, just discuss it. I don't have a problem with that too. It may be, July, August off kind of thing. Like a teaching job if you have a summer.
I think what we would need to do here is to talk to some other towns, but also to look at the job description and the tasks that we're asking you to do and try to identify what time of the year these get done and just say, how long does it take to do this? Or when are these DOR things due? And that may help us know if there's something that needs to be done in the summer, but it's not much or.
One of the things we did determine was we talked to the previous person from town who has done minutes for a long time for us. And she said, if a meeting is 2 hours, you need 4 hours for minutes. If a meeting is an hour and a half, you need 3 hours per minute. So we have that piece. What if I asked Stuart, Eric, if he has a sense of how that works in other communities?
Yeah, sure, great, please, yeah, let's resource him as we need to.
I'll
he may
email
have-
him those questions so then he can do a little research for us. That'd be great.
He may have databases that we don't have access to,
Sure.
that'd be great. Okay, so that's our update.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. We're good, right, Janet? We're good?
We're good.
Joe, anything
All
else?
set? Yeah.
Okay, our subcommittee's
I
done.
like what I'm hearing, keep going.
Yes, thank you
Okay,
very much for
great.
your help, people, and I look forward to getting this put together, thank you.
Yep.
Moving on to, I just want to have a brief discussion or kind of an explanation of how I view the review of the presentations this season. I really want to make them hopefully concise and meaningful. And so it's going to be hopefully a 15-minute discussion. And then about 5 minutes, I guess I got clipped here, 5 minutes for 10 minutes for questions.
Mhm.
So 25 minutes in total per excuse me, a visitor.
Oh, but- oh, we have multiple.
Sorry,
A family of owls.
we have an owl in need, a need of an owl, so
Are there
we're
any wires for this? There's none downstairs. Oh, is it in here?
gonna take a little hiatus. as we get
Break.
Yep.
Okay, so those of us on Zoom don't know what's going on.
Explain to you, somebody came in, I'm sorry, it wasn't clear, needed an owl, so we took a little break, because they had to grab the other owl, and they have their little, leather glove on, and it landed on their wrist, and now. they're
Wow.
out. So
Wow.
we can
Rick-
we can reconvene, so
Rick-
my
Rick-
thought, go ahead,
Is Margaret still there? It's Kate.
no, she's back down, yep.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
So my thought on these reviews is, I'd like to spend as much time as possible in these 3 meetings where we're listening to the applicants, just focusing on them and their proposal. And listening intently with graciousness, and then ask questions directly related to what they presented. I'd like to hold off any deliberation or review of these individual applications until we've seen and listened to everyone. So that we try to keep everybody on a level playing field. And if there are follow-up questions, of course, there will be, then we can ask for follow-up questions and have them come back and give to Joe or somebody the questions and the answers. Does that make sense to folks?
Sounds good to me.
Great, I just want to make sure that we're time effective as possible. And because we had a lot of applications this year. So let's see, are the folks from the Conservation Commission on the line today? Yeah, Kate, is that gonna be you?
Yes, Rick, thank you.
Right, we may move you forward because Steve just had to leave unexpectedly to another room, it looks like. Would you mind if we just swap the order so we don't waste any time and ask you to proceed?
Absolutely, no problem.
Thank you so much. Could you just announce who you are, who you're representing, and the name of your
Yes.
project?
Yes. Joe, are you there? Do you mind if I share my screen?
Not at all. Yeah.
Awesome.
We have to allow you to, let's see.
But while that's going on, what I just received very late this afternoon from Jeff Solard, our accounting person, is, and I will send it out to all the CPC people after this meeting. I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance. I literally got it around 6 o'clock. 5:30. Was a list of the different buckets that are available for expenditures and how much is available in each bucket, as well as what the anticipated addition coming in the spring will be to that bucket. So these are the numbers for the people on the CPC. These are the numbers that we're dealing with when we're trying to figure out how we can fund all of these worthwhile projects. And I'll send that right out as soon as I can.
Kate, if you don't mind, I'd have to make you the host. Can you send that to me? And Rick, if you want, I have the town hall debt application. You want me to
You
start
should
with
be able
that?
to make her a host just by going up to attendees and make her a host, right?
Yeah, just the only thing is, okay, if I do that, you just gotta make me the host again after you're done, I suppose.
I will, that's,
if you can just email
I'm
me.
literally sending it to you right now, Joe.
Yeah,
It'll
okay.
take 2
Good, good.
seconds.
All right,
Yeah.
okay.
You can also make her co-host without it changing your ability to also host.
Yeah, it's not allowing me to do a co-host for some reason, just host or host, I should say.
Should be right there. No problem at all.
Got it.
Great. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome. Here, 1 second. All right. Okay. All right. Can everyone see that?
I can see it.
This from here.
Janet, are you able to see that, Janet?
I can see it. Kate, could you though introduce who you are so everybody
Yes.
on knows who you are and what your job is?
Yes, absolutely. Joe, do you mind just going to the slideshow so it looks a little bigger for everybody so they can all see it perfectly?
I'm in slideshow mode now.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. All right, everybody. Hello, my name is Kate Mallory. I am the Conservation and Open Space Coordinator, and I have 2 applications tonight. This is the first one. And so this is the Conservation Commission's request to you, the CPC, to transfer $1.5 million to the Conservation Fund. And this is to purchase open space. Next slide, please. All right, so I know you guys all probably read the application. I'm not going to go through all the details on the application of why open space is important. I just put here some of the most important things that I think it is. Of course, being the conservation and open space person for the town, I think conserving natural resources is really important. But there's also recreational opportunities here. It's a great way to preserve agriculture, preserve scenic beauties and views, which is so important to Wenham being such a beautiful town. Protect water resources as climate change happens. Water is a big, huge deal. And so we really need to preserve as much open space as possible. Open space helps mitigate climate change and prevent flooding. Of course, one of the greatest things for residents is open space enhances property values. So it's really important. And it leaves a legacy for future generations. Next slide, please. So since you guys all did already read the application, I thought what I would do is give you an example of why this is needed and what can happen if we are not prepared to purchase open space. I am using 9 Maple Street as an example. So 9 Maple Street is a Chapter 61 property. It's Chapter 61A, which is agriculture. I'll explain what that means in a few more minutes. But basically, this parcel that you see that's surrounded in that yellow line is 101 acres of Chapter 61 land, and then about 20 acres that is normal land. So this is a property that if it does come up, the town will have the right of first refusal to buy this property. So if you look here, I thought I was going to have my little cursor, so I'll try to explain it a little bit. To the top right-hand side, that is Cedar Pond. So you know that Cedar Pond off of Cherry Street just got a makeover with a new beautiful parking lot. This is the backside next to West Wenham Park. And so there's a great connection with this parcel of land to the Audubon property up on the top right there. In the actual property, in the yellow lines, there's a lot of wetlands, estimated 30 to 40% of wetlands there. I was able to tour the property with the property caretaker, and there are definitely more wetlands than is seen on this map. There's a beautiful trail system already in this area. It's absolutely a spectacular property. And also, it's crucially important to prevent fragmentation of wildlife habitat. So you see that Audubon area, there is connections to this area, so it's wonderful for wildlife as well. Next slide.
You got all that?
Yeah, I got it.
All right, so you're looking at an area view of the same property, okay? If this property was sold to a developer, which could very likely happen, we estimate at the minimum, they could fit in 17 to 21 acre houses. So they have to go around the wetland areas. If they followed all of our zoning rules, then this is what could happen to that area. So you lose the wildlife corridor, you lose all the recreational opportunities with all those beautiful trails, and you get a lot more really big houses. Next slide. All right, so what is this chapter 61 I'm talking about? Basically, there are three chapter 61 sections. We're talking about for this property, chapter 61A, which is agriculture. So that means that there's agriculture going on at that property right now. They get a tax break for keeping it in agriculture. In order to get that tax break, they give the town the right of first refusal. So that means that the town, us, we would get the right to buy this property before anybody else does. Next slide. So how is this right of first refusal triggered? It is triggered if the trustees of this property or any chapter 61 property decides to sell the property that will change its use. So the person wants to sell the land for residential, commercial, or industrial use. It's no longer agricultural or open space. Therefore, the town is triggered to have that right of first refusal. And so the town would have to match any offer that was given for the property. And I do want to say, if you think of, oh my gosh, Kate, this is 101 acres, that is going to be, you know, a $30 million purchase for the town. It might be out of our reach. This property right now is going through an appraisal. So we know that at the town, our town administrator is really on top of these things. This is going right now under an appraisal. What they do is they take our zoning laws, our conservation commission laws, they take, and they almost do like a subdivision like you saw beforehand and minus out the cost of infrastructure and all those different things. So a property like this, although we don't know what the appraisal will come in, is not going to be like a $30 million buy, just so everybody knows. Next slide. All right. So why can't the CPC just say, yes, Kate, we'll just put aside funds for open space. We have to do that anyways. Why does it have to go to the Conservation Commission and to their conservation fund? The biggest reason is because with these chapter 61 properties, we are in a time crunch. As you guys all know, I'm sure you have at some point in your life bought or sold properties. A lot of things take a lot of time to do. So we want to minimize and be proactive in what we can do before this hits, because we only have 120 days as a municipality to get most of this stuff done. One of the wonderful things is the Open Space and Rec Committee has a plan with a beautiful checklist of everybody's responsibilities and what everybody has to do. But what we're trying to avoid is having to set up a town meeting. We would like to have the town vote beforehand that this is what they want to do and have the money put aside ready to go instead of having to set up a town meeting, which will be A, very expensive, and B, oftentimes very hard to do in this quick time frame. Next slide. All right, so I just did mention the Open Space and Recreation Committee. My suggestion would be that there should be some parameters on this funding. So the state says, okay, you can transfer this fund, the CPC funding to the conservation fund, and the Conservation Commission has to apply any purchases the same as CPC would. So they have to follow the same rules and regulations. So all the land that is purchased through the conservation fund would have to be conservation restricted. And so that's wonderful. That's not a problem. The other thing I would say is that we do have this matrix of open space parcels in town that has been already voted on by the town. It's in the open space plan. Residents of the town have voted on this, and they took the most important parcels of open space in town and ranked them. So my example of 9 Maple Street, which in my opinion may be the next one to come up for the town, is consistently ranked in the top for the parcels. Joe, you can go to the next slide. The lowest it ranked is right here under recreation and trail priority. It was moved to 9th. And I think that was because I was not here back then, but because I've actually walked the property, it's got an amazing recreational trail system. I think that this was done because it's a private property and people didn't realize the extent of the trail system behind there. But everywhere else, this has ranked really high. So my suggestion would be to put parameters when you do your grant agreement, if you want to do this project, in that it follows this, this matrix that the open space already has. So we know that these are the parcels that the town would like to buy. Next slide. And this is just, again, seeing that 9 Maple Street is in different areas. And next slide.
Hey, I'm gonna ask you to take a breath there. Just want to let you know you have about 4 minutes left for your presentation.
Okay. All right. Next slide. All right. So I'll just read this. This is straight from the Community Preservation Coalition website. It is important to react quickly when real estate opportunities arise in your community, or you may risk losing the deal. CPC is telling us to do this. Next. Oops, sorry, that's my dog. All right, so I think the biggest thing is we want to make sure that we're not taking away from other categories, right? So what I did was Joe sent me a spreadsheet of every single CPC application, award that has come through. Not one has been used for purchasing open space. That $12,000 there is for the open space and rec plan. So I put that there. But as you can see, every other category has been evenly funded. So open space has been underfunded, in my opinion. Of course, there has been no opportunity to buy anything either. Go ahead, next slide. All right, so $1.5 million, what is that really going to do for us? We can use it as a match for federal funding and state funding. There's a lot of funding that has come out in the last 5 years. I could go on for a long time about that. But I will not, because I have probably a minute left. It shows land trust that we are serious. To buy these properties, we're probably going to have to go with an Audubon or a Greenbelt, and it will show them that we're serious. And it can help us negotiate with landowners before that right of first refusal is triggered. Next slide. Oh, good. Okay. So a transfer to the conservation fund puts Wenham in a positive position to be proactive and not reactive. So thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you,
Thanks,
Kate.
Kate.
Thank you very much. What I'd like to do now is see if we can come back to the full owl Zoom and just ask first of all, any members of the CPC, if they have any questions. Remember, just questions, not comments. We'll evaluate them after we get through all the funding requests, but questions, please. Raise your hand to be recognized and Joe will get you on.
Catherine?
Okay, just a couple, I have a million questions, but I'll ask the big ones. So does a conservation fund already exist in town?
Yes.
Does. Is it funded in any way? Is there any money in it?
There's about, I think it's $45,000 in it. There's not a ton of money in it.
And are there presently parameters around how the money in general in that conservation commission account fund can be spent?
Yes, the state mandates how it can be spent, and to my knowledge, the conservation fund hasn't been used since I've been here. The Conservation Commission hasn't used it at all yet.
Okay. Okay, my other question is probably for a meeting, another meeting. I have I have some legal questions on how this would work, how does it get paid out? You know, legally, what the process is, can it be used for recreation? But I think that may be beyond the scope of this meeting.
So, Kate, if you would be okay with that, Catherine, could you direct those questions, written questions, maybe to Joe, and then Joe could compile all the questions for
Sure.
individual requesters?
Yep.
And then we can funnel it to the appropriate person and get answers for our next meeting, or for our discussion on appropriateness.
Sure,
Absolutely.
I can do that.
Other questions? I have a couple, how quick is the funding from state and federal governments? Everything has got to move in 120 days. We're a small little town having trouble moving in 120 days. How does the state and federal grants, how do they work? Do you start applying for them now? What's the process?
So I went and talked to Wayne Castingway. He is the director of the Ipswich River Watershed Association. He also does a lot of stuff. He's the one that's gotten a lot of Ipswich, Massachusetts open space done. He kind of is known for inventing the bonding, the CPC bonding process as well. So he is in the know with all this. And basically what he told me was, the state started, because of this process, the state started having discretionary funds available. So just at DCR, the state has $1 million that they could get us tomorrow as discretionary funds if they wanted to, and even more if they had a little bit more time. So I have all that information. I've been reaching out to people, and there's plenty of things to do. We can also, what if we can negotiate with the property owner beforehand, and that is the biggest thing that I think this $1.5 million would be able to do, is give us some negotiating power. Not only say, hey, Greenbelt, we're putting some money towards this, or Audubon, we're putting some money towards this. It's saying, you know, we have some negotiating power. Don't go to the developers and trigger that right of first refusal. Come to us first and let's negotiate. So it's kind of a twofold situation that just gives us a bit more power.
And you're comfortable the town is all moving together on this. So if we take the risk as a group to propose this to the town, you're comfortable that the other resources that are needed, like state and federal funding, third-party funding, that's all being coordinated to move the process forward?
Yes. We have even spoken to some of the Chapter 61 title holders. The town is moving forward, and our TA Steve has been very involved in this as well, and the select board.
Thank you. Other questions?
I just thought of one other quick one that I think can be answered
We have
now.
about 2 minutes.
Okay, so if we were to grant this and the town meeting were to approve it, we recommend approval to town meeting and they approve it, it's $1.5 million. And what if there's one of these that comes up and it needs only $750,000? Do you just take the first one off the list? Do you take the first one that comes up? Do you have to spend it all? What happens to what's left? I guess that's my question.
My recommendation is going by the parcel ranking. So if it's on that matrix parcel ranking, I would say the town should go for it. That's my opinion, because there's been years and years and years and none of these have come up. We do have inside intel that 9 Maple Street will probably be selling within any time to the next few years. So that's why it's so important to get ready. But there are also other ones that could be coming up as well. So I wouldn't say we want to wait for one and miss other ones in case people might change and say they don't want to sell it anymore. So That would be my suggestion, but ultimately the suggestion for buying property is the select board's suggestion. I mean, select board's decision. So the
Thank you.
select board
Thank
makes
you,
it
Kate.
ultimate.
Thank you, Kate.
We have reached our 25 minutes on this one. We started a little bit before 7. Thank you, Kate. I
Thank
think we all welcome your insight and feedback on this project. Thank you. I think we want to go ahead.
Kate has another, right? You have another one, Kate, as well.
Oh,
I
you have two
do.
tonight, Kate? Sorry. Let's do you next.
All right. Did I email you that one, Joe?
I only have the first one, I think, unless there was another email sent.
The Karen Wolf Garden.
No, this is for signage, right?
Signage,
Okay.
yep.
All right.
I'm gonna-
Is Katie in on that one too?
That's on the 24th, I believe. No, she's also part of that.
Signage, you're right, Joe.
You're emailing that one, Kate, as well?
Right this second.
Okay.
And don't worry, this transfer time does not affect your amount of time.
Thank you. I thought I was gonna be really under. I just kept talking.
Rick runs a tight ship over here.
He does. I like that.
That's it.
I want to watch a little TV tonight before I go to bed.
If anyone knows the Celtics score, someone.
Right.
Follow across.
All right, let's see. That, and then
Rick, you just want to finish early so you can go to planning board, right?
All
Right.
Right, for sure.
See how I thought you guys are more important than planning board?
Thanks, Rick. You know, they're already down 1 tonight.
I know they are.
signage, okay.
Chair of this one.
I hope David's okay.
He is.
All right, whenever you're ready, Kate, for this one.
All right. So this is the second request. This is the request from the Open Space and Recreation Committee. And they're requesting $18,000 to the CPC committee for signage. All right, next slide. All right, so where the signs would go, this is going to be hopefully a bigger project through town, but for this beginning of the project, the signs would go at Reynolds Farm in West Wenham Park. So I thought I'd start by just telling you guys kind of what these areas are, just in case you don't know. Reynolds Farm is really a magical place in town. It's conservation restricted farmland, and it was given to the town by the Reynolds family. So now the executors of the land are the conservation commissioners, and it's being farmed by the Food Project. The Food Project is a wonderful organization. They are a nonprofit, and they distribute food all over, vegetables all over the Northeast, and help people that have hunger issues. This year, this next year coming up, they're going to be partnering with the Three Sisters. So the Three Sisters will have a few acres on the farm as well. They're also a nonprofit. And then Rambling Roots is a new farmer. He was in the new Entry Tufts program, which means that he had an acre of land for 3 years through this program and learned to farm. And now he's going to have a few acres on the Reynolds farm. So it's a beautiful place. We started last year during Arbor Day. We started the fruit orchard. So we planted 5 apple trees that were donated by residents, families of the town, and we had a great celebration. We'll be doing that again this April, and we invite you all to come. It's a really fun thing. And there are a bunch of trails. It's a wonderful, wonderful parcel of land. Next slide. So people don't know that these trails and this parcel of land is for the enjoyment of Wenham residents. So we thought to get Wenham residents out there and being able to walk around these trails, signage would be a nice addition. So to the top left, there's a parking area. Around that parking area, we'd like to do a sign that's looks like on the left over here. So it's an entrance sign. It would say, "Welcome to Reynolds Farm." It would have the town, like a logo or a signature, some sort of the town, and a trail map so that people can see where they're going safely. And so if you look kind of around all the yellow areas on the outside, those are mostly trails that people can walk. And the inside of the yellow areas is where the agriculture is happening. So they're going to have pick your own flowers this year. So residents can go in and pick their own flowers. They'll have the apple orchard, probably need another year or two until we get some good mature apples, but we'll keep planting trees and other fruit trees out there. And it's a really beautiful place even to go out in the back and down in the south field. This also goes along the Miles River. So we're thinking that we'd have the one big welcome sign and then 5 other educational signs that also show you where to go along the trail. So directional and educational signs. So there's a bee habitat over there. We thought it'd be great to have educational sign about bees, organic farming, insects. The food project and its partners have offered to help us with some of the information for the signs. Next slide. All right, so West Wenham Park, I think most of you know that this project's going forward because the CPC was integral in making this project even happen. Without the CPC, this project would not be happening. This is an area of town that is not used much and is being revitalized. We're in the engineering phase right now, and we are going to hopefully be starting to break ground in February. So there's going to be pickleball courts and a pump track and a really lot of cool things like a pavilion and play areas. But if you look on the left-hand side, there's going to be a pollinator meadow with a loop path. This loop path will also connect to the Autobahn property that I was talking about in my last presentation. And so what we'd like to do is along this path, put directional on how to go, and then also stories. And these frames are different because you are able to switch out the story in the frames. And so we can have, you know, stories that we do every couple of months in that area. Next slide. All right, there's a lot here. Why signage is important. I know you guys read my application. So it just, what I want to say is it provides educational content. It helps you navigate the trails. It promotes safety, which I think is so important, and gives a deeper appreciation of our beautiful areas in town. So I think, you know, these things kind of create a sense of community and pride. Next slide. All right, again, Open Space and Recreation Commission had a survey, and they wanted to know what would increase your use of existing open space and rec areas. And 66% said trail maps, which we want to put at Reynolds Farm, and 44% said better signage. So it is wanted in town. We also got a letter of support, which you saw from the Conservation Commission, the Open Space Committee, obviously, and the farmers at Reynolds Farm. Next slide. All right, so the budget. I do have to apologize on the budget that you have. I put in mass tax. We don't pay tax. So I took that out for this presentation. So you can adjust the funding request if you would like. I put a buffer cost of $4,000, and that is strictly because I got 3 different quotes from 3 different companies. Prices are really different. So I was just nervous to undercut it, but you please decide how you would like to fund this project if you would like to fund it. The other thing is, what I would look at is say, whoa, sign logo design is $4,000. Yes, but if we continue to use this signage on different trails and areas in town, we will not have design costs anymore. So it's design heavy at the beginning, but then once we get our templates, it will be smooth sailing after that. Next slide. All right. So exciting news. If this was approved, if this project is approved, I think I could get everything done by October, and the storyboards installed for the West Wenham Park grand opening would just be another wonderful thing for the town. Well, thank you.
Hey,
Thanks, Karen.
thank you. I want to thank you very much for the second presentation. It sounds, I do believe signage is so important, and the upgrade they did to Pleasant Pond, to Cedar Pond has been pretty remarkable, so thank you. I'd like to ask questions. Anybody have questions that's on the Zoom call remotely tonight? I'd like to go to you first. I don't wanna.
Patricia?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
just a quick question specifically to the signage on the Reynolds Farm. When you're putting signage for agriculture, how are you thinking through like the permanence or semi-permanence and hopefully like rotational qualities of agriculture? And how does the signage respond to that fluctuation? Have you guys
Yes.
thought that?
Yep. So, first of all, any of these signs can be moved, even though they're going to be put in the ground, they can be moved. We are going to be working closely with the food project, who are really the experts in organic farming. And what we want to do is put in signage that will last at least 10 years, because these signs will last 10 or more years. The other thing we thought of was there are QR code stickers that you can put on these signs. So say we have, you know, more of a, hey, we know this science isn't going to change, but then you can go to this website for more information, but then that changes. We can remove those waterproof stickers and put a new QR code on them. So we did think about things like that, but there will be more work to do with that.
Yeah. Cool. And what is the commitment of the food project to the Reynolds Farm? Like, what is their current agreement?
So they're actually going through re-upping their lease right now. And so they would be committed there for another 5 years.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thomas, did you have a question? Thomas Stark? Or is that okay, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, no, I don't really have a question. I'm on the Open Space Committee, and you know, I just wanted to support this and actually say that I think it requires some work and nuance to, you know, get the content of the messages just right. We've talked about that, but that's part of the process, and I think you know, that's not determined in its entirety yet, right? That would have to be worked out. So that's part of the process of the writing and design. But the other thing is I didn't get a chance to speak about the earlier proposal about the open space. You didn't specifically call on the public, so I was kind of expecting that, so I missed that. But you know, I just want to say that you know, the whole you probably recall this, the whole Open Space Committee, you know, came into existence because of the Wenham Pines property, the golf course. When that was, we had first refusal rights on that, and we turned out not to. It's a long story, but that were not exercised, and so it went to a developer. You know, I just want to reiterate that all the years before I was on open space, I was on CPC, and the refrain was always CPC. You know, the older residents of the town said, you know, we really fought to have CPC so we could preserve open space, and not one thing had ever been preserved. Not one piece of open space had ever been preserved. All the years I was on for like 10 years. And then all the years I've been on the Open Space Committee after CPC, you know, only that Wenham Pines property was the only thing that ever came up. So it's true that things haven't come up. You have to wait for them to come up. It's been a long time waiting, and the idea is to be, you know, to be fully prepared, which, you know, we weren't when the Wenham Pines.
Thank you, Tom. I don't want to cut in too much to Kate's time, because but thank you for your comments on that. Are there other questions for Kate on the signage proposal?
No, well, that was very well done.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Great, so let's move on. I think we have two can I borrow this a second? Sorry.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
lost.
sure.
We have two requests now from the town of Wenham to re-up the restoration project of Town Hall. And then I think kind of dovetailing on Kate's earlier presentation, general obligation bonds. And is that going to be presented by you, Steve?
I think Joe's gonna
Joe?
do
Joe's gonna do
that,
it?
and I'll do that.
Okay, great. Please proceed.
Okay. Town hall.
Town hall debt is
Okay,
next,
sure.
yeah.
All right.
I want to let everybody know too, we're making great time. So thank you, everybody, for being concise in your presentations and thoughtful in your questions.
Let me just,
So in the lull, could I ask a question? Not a question really. Can I make a comment for our next meeting? That whoever's on, just so the general public knows who everyone is, like right now, it says that our town administrator's name is Joe Pessamato. For those of us that are zooming, I mean, I know that's not who that is. I know who Joe is, and I know who Steve is. But for the public, I think it's important for them to know who people are.
Well, I think on the owl, since Joe set it up, it's using Joe's name, but maybe we could just make that something like administrative support or something, Zoom master, just so we don't confuse that, if that's
Zoom
helpful.
master, Zoom master.
Zoom master.
Say, am I being promoted though?
Yeah.
More than okay.
As long as it's, Joe, as long as it's not more
Thank
than
you.
19 hours a week.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you for that feedback, and we'll make sure.
And
people
there's
announce
actually,
themselves.
there's actually all of you that are face to face are listed as Joe Pessamato, which makes
And
no
maybe we could
sense.
just call that in the room. We could just call that maybe in the room, on site or something like that, just so we can clarify who those people are. Thank you. Good idea.
Okay,
You good, Joe?
I'm good, thank you. Let's see here. Okay, this won't be too long. This is probably the shortest presentation, but I just thought I'd make a few slides. This is the annual application for the CPC to help repay the town hall restoration project debt that started around 2006. So town hall is seen as a jewel to the community, highly regarded by a lot of folks. I know when I first had my first job interview here, I noticed one of my first impression was that I loved the town hall, just how it looked on the outside. It stuck out to me as sort of kind of a old school town hall in New England. I really think it's just a great building, and
The blood's still on the front lawn.
Yeah.
yeah, started 1854, which I was reading a lot of history the last few days. So the amount of debt being serviced total is just over 2 million. A portion of that was just a portion of the total project cost. And that was attributable solely to the town hall work. And this was again around 2006, the work commenced. But just to give a little bit of a background, because I love history as well. This was erected in 1854. So by around 2002, though, the foundation started to kind of have a lot of difficulties. And the question arose on whether or not we should kind of get rid of town hall, replace it, tear it down, or kind of renovate it. So back in the early 2000s, the select board had established a town hall and police station building committee, because also around this time, the police station project was sort of tied to this as well. So that building committee was formed around then, and it also included the police. This is kind of a cool photo I found online from the 1800s. And so again, as the foundation became worse, it even got to the point where the selectmen had stopped meeting at town hall. The meetings were held at the center school building over on School Street. Town meetings were held back then at that point at Bucher, which they are now, obviously. But a lot of the internal meetings just within, town hall staff were also off-site at the recreation building on School Street. So it gets a little complicated with the history, but from what I could gather, you could go through this for hours, but in 2004, Wenham residents at a special town meeting voted to actually replace town hall. So that was the original plan. But there was a movement that sort of happened. It was called the Save Town Hall movement, that gained a lot of traction. And actually the very next year, the residents sort of reversed the whole project. In 2005, a vote 224 to 76, they changed their mind and they wanted to kind of renovate town hall, restore it. So that changed over the course of a year or so. Renovation contract was awarded to Bar Incorporated and J. Stewart Roberts Associates out of Somerville. They were selected as the architects. And it began again in 2006, August 2006, demolition of the interior, and it was substantially completed in late March 2008. Several changes happened, obviously, one of which was there was an old jail cell actually toward the basement, which was totally removed. There was actually a side entrance that you could enter from. And that would go into the, I believe there was a library there,
Yeah.
children's
Yeah.
library
Yeah.
in the basement that it was installed around the 1970s. So really interesting history, but that also was removed. Also, the renovation included excavation, parting, coating of the foundation. End product was town hall looking like it had done in its prime. So looks great. And so again, town appropriated through town meeting vote. I believe it was also a ballot question, if I'm not mistaken. I think there was a special town election as well that followed the vote to confirm it. And again, this year, the ask is, this is again a bond payment. Back around 2006, the town's financial advisor determined that there could be a lot of interest saved, a lot of thousands of dollars, in fact, if we bonded the project based upon level principal payments, which is why we're having this payment schedule here. So again, the payments have changed from year to year, but the overall principal expenditure has remained the same. This year, the ask is $109,600. I should note that this project is nearly complete, this payback, repayment. Including this go around, there will be 3 more payments. So by 2027, we will be totally done with the town hall debt repayments, which is a good thing as well. So that is just a slideshow right there. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joe. We have about 10 minutes for questions. If anybody would like to be recognized, please raise your hand. Alden?
It's not a question, it's a compliment. Good job on the
Oh, thank you.
research. I remember that 2005
Oh, is it? Yep.
meeting. It was very exciting. And I remember it was very close to having the building demolished.
Right.
And myself and many others
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
no, stop, do not demolish the building. We need to consider this longer. And it passed overwhelmingly. It's a great decision for our town. And when people
agree.
do drive through, just that classic architecture
Yes.
really says volumes about who.
Right. The library has a wonderful, that's where I got a lot of the information. I have a wonderful
Yeah,
document,
yeah.
but I was reading, so it goes all the way
Yeah.
back to the 1850s. So
I totally support.
One of the only two examples of late Italian Victorian architecture in the state.
is that right?
Yeah.
Good. Beautiful.
Questions from the floor, from the Zoom?
Patricia, go ahead.
Just wondering how many more years you anticipate having to pay this off?
Yeah, so the last, assuming this is approved, there will be 3 payments total. So this will end, the last payment will be in 2027.
Yeah.
Yes,
Great.
So we're 17 years into a
Yeah.
20-year bond.
right.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands raised, I want to, again, thank Joe
Yes,
for
thank
his
you, Joe.
research and hard work on town hall, and any questions, funnel them to Joe and he'll get them back around to the group. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Last but not least,
All right, well,
Mr. Steve Willis.
all
We're
right,
gonna discuss, just for the record, we're gonna be discussing potential bond funding. Sorry, do you have the list of?
Oh, yeah.
Appropriately.
Sure.
The request is from the town of Wenham for open space general obligation bonds. Great, Steve, thank you.
so this application really ties very closely, almost identical, to what Kate presented to you earlier. So I wanted to go over all that information again, but this differs, in a couple different ways. So it's, aimed again towards the preparedness for us to be able to act quickly and efficiently, and also, put us in a competitive, negotiating position where the potential sellers know that the town is serious and has funds at its disposal, that it can access quickly. And so this is an authorization, a request for the CPC to authorize an amount of funds that would be used to service the future issuing of debt on one of the 6 parcels that was listed in the matrix that Kate described. So you can see here in front of you, those are the top 6 parcels or pieces of property that continue to rank highly in the matrix across all 5 or 6 categories. And this is taking a, two-prong approach. There's not it's not a direct request for transfer of funds like Kate's into an existing, conservation fund. It is a request to authorize the debt service on a bond if it's needed. So there's a two approach. One is that this application is the request to the CPC to authorize that. And the second step is, we're proposing to have it on the warrant for the FY24 annual town meeting. And a warrant article that authorizes the select board to act under its authority to acquire one of the 6 parcels and issue debt to help in the acquisition of those parcels. So that would give them the ability, again, to act quickly, to issue the debt, and then use CPC funds to service that debt. Funding amount is up to $237,000 a year. And for the total cost of the project, that would allow a borrowing over 20 years of $2.7 million. You can see on the spreadsheet that I supplied in my application, it's really the limit of how much we can borrow is limited to the amount of CPA funds that are raised through the surcharge only. So we cannot take into account any state matching. And we first must have to take 10% out for historic reserve, 10% out for housing, and the full 5% out for the administrative account. And then also account for any existing debt the CPC is debt service the CPC is authorized as it's required to pay that through the life of the borrowing. So that was I put the estimation in there at $115,000. That is the town hall debt. And after you remove those from the estimated CPA revenue, but to just the surcharge of about $470,000, you have the $237,000 left to spend on this debt service. So, that is the full amount you have available to you, not including state match funds. So. And I just went on to discuss a little bit, the community need and support. I think that is pretty clear since I've been here. There's been two events that have taken place on 2 separate parcels that I believe Kate alluded to both of them directly, and just general anecdotal experience in the office. We had a significant amount of comments about the town's lack of preparedness to act in these situations. No real forethought into how we would go about acquiring them. And it kind of made us, it's true. We lacked the preparedness for it. And, that is kind of what prompted these 2 requests to the CPC, and also as we've developed relationships with the Greenbelt. Kate has reached out with the Mass Audubon, and they've expressed interest in partnering with the town as well. So it can be a group effort. They want to preserve the land, we want to preserve the land, so the interests certainly align. And then just to state a few goals that has come out of the master planning process, that through the public outreach and feedback they've received, it's increase protection for open space by preserving Wenham's open space, exceed relevant state and federal surface water quality standards for Wenham's lakes, ponds, and other surface water bodies, protect vernal ponds and wildlife access corridors to ensure sustainable habitats, promote sustainable landscaping and tree planting practices on public and private property to increase pollinator habitat and maintain tree canopy townwide. Explore opportunities to expand resident access to public and private open spaces, such as neighborhood pockets in the Wenham Canal, and expand local knowledge about conservation and sustainability benefits through educational programming and signage, which, a majority of those would be, certainly by acquiring some of these parcels that are on the list, which, will go a long way in satisfying some of those goals. And that is really all I have here as far as the presentation. If there's any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Town Administrator Steve Poulos. Opening the floor, thank you again. Opening the floor to any questions or to clarifications needed.
Tricia, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm wondering if you could just explain again. I know you just explained it, but I just want to make sure I'm following it. How does this work? Like, what are we actually approving this year versus when you actually might need it in future years? Am I understanding that
so-
correctly?
Yeah, so the request. Again, the request is ultimately, the requested amount from myself is $237,000. That's the maximum amount the CPC could authorize to service debt in the future. So
Okay.
that, if you were to authorize, if you were to say, if you were to recommend a town meeting voted that, this project through. And in the future. Well, it's really twofold, so that would have to happen, go through town meeting supported the $237,000, and then there would be an additional warrant article. In that town meeting that authorizes the select board. To purchase one of those parcels. So, it might be 1 year, it might be 10 years, but if one of those parcels comes for sale. It allows the select board now have the authority to act. In purchasing that, and at that point, the select board would issue debt. And that debt service would be paid from the CPC, so you're basically the money is tied up.
Mhm.
In that year, in every year forward.
And so
But
it's-
for clarification,
Sorry.
if I can jump in, because I share Patricia's curiosity. The $237,000 would be coming out of the current year's funds.
No,
Are you asking for a series of annual 237?
it would be every year through the life of the loan,
237,000,
yes.
but over 20 years, there's like over $5 million. You said 237,000 would generate a loan of 2 million. That's like a 10-year loan or something. So I'm confused also, Patricia.
Right, well, I'm also wondering, just, I mean, maybe you can answer that question first, but I think also how that would work on our end of like always having that available. Let's say you don't actually use it or don't have a parcel available for 5 years from now. Or are we every year just kind of holding that amount of 237 just in
Well, you
case?
would, what's the?
Would it be 237 every year, or would it change?
Like
similar to town hall
6% interest. 237.
I think I'm gonna pick up on Patricia's.
Well, I think,
but go
yeah, I
ahead.
mean, we can go through the math, but like, they just put the mechanics of it, so let's say
Yeah.
237 is accurate, and it's
For 1 year.
for 1 year. But this is so it's like a mortgage on your house,
It's a bond, essentially.
it's a bond, so it would be. Right now, you wouldn't transfer any money, and next year you wouldn't transfer any money. You're authorizing. The funds to be used in the future.
Mhm.
So like so you could spend, or so we don't have any land to buy. So you could, in theory, you could spend the 237 on something else. But then say, next year there's no land to buy. And then in the third year, land comes up for sale, the select board acts on it, and then the debt is issued, and then the following year, your first payment comes due. The CPC, you don't have to go back to the CPC for access to those funds. So those funds come out just like the debt service on the town hall does. And it's every year through the life of the loan.
So can I kind of put it maybe in a little English? How do I say this? So we can, it is a bond. We're gonna authorize something without knowing what the property or without the final number is. But we can set a limit on the annual fund. So say they're asking for 237, but we may say, we're not comfortable with 237, we're comfortable with 115 a year. And that would allow them to know how much they could draw over those 25, whatever, 20 years for the bond. We could also put a stop limit on the length of time this offer is good for. So we could say that every year They have to come back, if nothing's purchased in that year, they've got to come back and resubmit for that authorization again, because the property list may have changed, priorities may have changed. So it gives them the flexibility, as I understand it, is this making some more sense? Or am I getting confusing words? Confusing words?
I understand bonds.
Oh, okay.
I had a CFP license.
No, but I'm trying to say
So-
practice,
so-
it's not about the bond part, it's
I know,
about
but
what's
but
happening
what
with our
I'm
money.
confusing is if we allocate 237,000 out of this year's pot. And one of you said if it gets spent on something else, well, who would spend it on what? If it doesn't get spent on debt service
You
for
would
acquisition.
spend it on. The CPC could appropriate it on something else.
We'll go back into the general.
General fund, if it wasn't
The
used.
CPC.
If
It
it
doesn't
was
go-
there,
it-
Isn't
goes-
your,
it stays
isn't
in
your
this-
goal?
It stays in the CPC pot.
But isn't your goal to accumulate, just like the Conservation Commission's goal is to accumulate a lot of money at their disposal so they can leverage it or outright purchase land and open space? Isn't your goal the same thing, to accumulate year after year after year? So if it's 200 this year, you want 200 next year. So then
No,
you
but
have
we're not,
400.
we're not taking the money. What this is, we only need the money. If there's something for the select board to purchase.
Then why don't you wait until you have something to purchase to ask for it?
speed,
Speed.
this pre-authorizes.
So you're
the loan.
saying you're asking for the 237 out of this year's pot. And if by next year, January of next year, you haven't spent it, that 237 comes back to.
Well, the
CPC.
authorization, no, the authorization stays in place until the CPC rescinds it. We wouldn't have to come back every year.
But what if?
Or we could ask them
What
to
if
come
we
back.
spent it on something else?
We can't if we've
You don't
given
make it
them
allocated it.
exclusive control over it.
When do you
What
make your
kind of-
first bond payment? So let's say on
Either
January
the year.
first.
I'm
Well,
confused.
it depends on when the,
You too?
so what's the question?
Well, so I have a little slightly different angle on that question. So as with the town hall.
Yeah.
At some point in time, a bond was issued and every year,
Yes.
in order to pay off that bond, there's a
The town
CPC.
comes
that-
for
Yeah, the
CPC.
town puts in an application to the CPC and it goes to town meeting. Why wouldn't that have to happen here? Why would
Yes.
there automatically be
Well,
any money?
the-
So you purchase something in the first year with the 237,000 as part of a bond. Then
First year's payment.
that's the first year's payment, but if the second year's payment, wouldn't you have to come back to the CPC and ask for the funds for the second year?
Because with town hall,
No,
we were told with town hall that if CPC and town meetings said, no, we're not gonna fund the remaining payments on the town hall bond, then that would just go into the tax bill, you know?
Well, so then it would
it's a
default
shuffle.
on the, you
This is a
would-
general obligation bond.
yeah, so,
Right,
I mean, the CPC. When a CPC adopts a project like the town hall debt, it doesn't have to go back to the CPC.
well, yeah, it comes every year.
Well, I know,
They have to ask for the money.
It's the annual request, but more importantly, getting the initial request out there so they have the flexibility to purchase the land without having to go to another warrant, another town meeting. So you're pre-approving the expenditure, but it would work just like the bond works here for the town hall. Everything else is the same,
Right.
it's just pre-approving that money. To give them the flexibility to negotiate. the
Yeah,
land
but I'm
price.
hearing something very different from what you're saying and what Joe is saying and what I've lived for 17 years.
Yeah, so I mean, so the bond on the town hall. If if a community preservation. Buys it or authorizes debt service on a project. You have to raise that money. No matter what, so even if you dissolve the CPC,
Correct, it's general obligation.
no, you still can raise that through a CPC surcharge through the life of the loan, so even if the CPC
I know
goes
what you're
away.
saying, okay. But that
So-
isn't the case
Yeah.
if CPC is here and every year somebody from town
Yeah,
hall
and that,
asks for that
yeah,
year's
and
debt
that's
service.
really a. You know,
Courtesy.
a courtesy,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
it has been that way forever, so everybody, everybody has continued to come forward. So we got an opinion of this from council. And so we continue to do so, but it's a CPC project that the CPC bonded money for. Authorized the bonding for the project, so they are obligated to raise the money.
I feel like we need a whole meeting on this, on especially the legal
Yeah,
aspects,
this is
because the
very
CPC, this is
complicated.
not, the town hall is not a CPC bond. The CPC didn't bond.
No,
It's a general obligation bond of the
of
town
the time,
that the CPC is
Funds.
requested.
it's being used as a financial
Correct.
resource. We're
Correct. So I
we're
guess
being used as the bank.
I'm with Alden and not, and I guess for many years, 17, it's been represented to us that that was a legal obligation, that had to happen every year. And also, I think you're right, if the questions have come up, if we dissolve CPC, some year, someone said, we don't want to even do CPC anymore, we still obviously have an obligation as a town, but I think what I heard you say was, even if we had no, I don't even know how this would work, even if we dissolved CPC, we could collect a CPC surcharge just for that bond.
That's my.
I don't understand that at all.
We have about
That
5
doesn't make-
minutes
Yeah,
left.
so.
It doesn't make sense, and I don't
this one-
understand that.
This one and the conservation,
I'm gonna
have a
give
lot
you
of legal
something.
questions.
Correct. So what I'm gonna say to everybody here on the call, just like we did with other questions we have, please describe them as well as you can in English and send them to Joe. We'll send them off to the responsible party for that application, and we'll get the answers made, and then we'll redistribute them to everybody. I think we can do that legally without, as long as we don't talk about it, we can get the answers back out to the group before our
Yeah.
next meeting.
And
That makes sense?
And to your credit, I'll reread the proposal. I read it very quickly. Maybe you've already answered my questions in what you've written, and I need to reread it again.
Yeah, I mean, the long and short of it, it's just. You're earmarking funds. To pay the debt on a potential future project.
Right, I hear you. I want to
And it's
reread,
really as simple as that.
So.
but it is complicated.
It
Yeah,
is.
it is.
It is, because there are several issues in our heads, I know
Yes.
right now, so I can see the
Complicated.
thought bubbles rising in
Yeah.
people's heads. So let's get the questions answered.
Yeah.
As they come up. Does that make sense? Oh, I see Patricia has her hand up. This will probably be the last question. Patricia?
Apologies that you're in the seat here having to answer this, but I guess I'm wondering like what you see as the benefit, like in comparison of your proposal for open space versus the proposal that Kate put forward. And do you all work together
Yeah,
if
well, that's,
you're
That's a
granted
good
funds?
question.
Next
That
question.
was mine too.
yeah, I mean, well, yeah, exactly, right, it's working together, it's just adding to the level of preparedness, it's not independent.
But is there an official relationship that y'all kind of collectively work towards the same properties? And it seems like Kate's doing like some active like field work and, due diligence. Like, are y'all doing the same due diligence separately?
Yeah,
Making
we're
decisions
working
together?
we're working off the same report and the same set
Yeah.
of
Patricia's new to town.
parcels.
About 4 or 5 years ago, Patricia, the Open Space Committee did a master plan. And in this master plan, those were that data points come from. They both use the same data points. So they're going back to the same data to support their application. Which the town has
Right.
approved.
And I
So we-
guess I just mean like if one of those parcels comes available, 9 Maple, as Kate proposed, and y'all from the city get behind it, who actually owns and pays for the parcel? Is it the city or is it the open space? I guess it's all just the town, right? Just different committees putting money forward. Is that correct?
I mean,
As I understand
It's
it.
complicated.
It's implicated, but it's not official. You're not working in competition, you're working together and you would work on the same parcel.
Yeah, I mean, well, in theory. In theory, we could, right, so. They could act independently of the select board and acquire one of those parcels, let's say the 6, the top 6. But they could really, and they're held to a different standard because they have, when you go to the conservation fund, they can act more independently in their actions than the select board could, because the select board would be tied to the specific authorization defined in the warrant article. So it would be, specifically defined parcels, specifically defined dollar, like not to exceed dollar amounts. Where the Conservation Commission could move forward and say, I heard someone bring up a scenario like, what if it was only $750,000 and we had 1.5 million? It's like, well, then they would have $750,000 left.
Yeah.
you know what I mean, they could move
Yep.
forward with that independently and acquire it, and it would become town-owned land. And it would be, permanently conserved. And the select board could. Effectively do the same if the conservation committee, for whatever reason, decided, I think that they didn't want to access their funds for. One of the top on the 6, but the select board have the authorization to act on one of those 6 parcels. They can move forward independently on behalf of the town.
I'm gonna take a break here, and I did say that if we wanted to extend the time, we could, but we'll need a roll call vote. So I think there is interest in continuing. If there is, we'll continue. If not,
Nothing.
are we good for tonight?
What are we continuing? What are you doing?
Well,
Rick?
right now, Janet, to be specifically, they've run out of their 25 minutes.
Right, I think
so
I
we're
think
gonna
we've
take a-
hashed it out. I would propose we've hashed it out enough.
And I just wanted
It's
to make sure.
been
we
a
take
lot of,
vote.
I've taken very detailed notes. And a lot of stuff is just being repeated.
Right. Not a problem. I
Thank
just
you,
want to take a
Janet.
vote to make it real, that I'm not doing it on my own behalf. I'd like to make a motion, that we, close the discussion on all projects tonight and specifically on the, request for funding, bond for, purchase of land. I have a second to the
Second
motion.
the
then
motion.
A second by Alden. And let me do a roll call because we're on there. Janet,
Janet, yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Tricia,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
Rick, yes, Alden, yes.
Yes.
Pros. Okay, great. We're gonna close discussion. Thank you, Steve, for
Yep,
that
yep.
presentation. It sounds like we do have a lot more data to get. So all questions, please, to Joe on that. We'll get clarification on that. Thank you. Wow. What's next?
This topic's not reasonably anticipated.
I think we're good. Does anybody have any topics not anticipated or announcements, good news, whatever? Great. Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry.
No, I
Catherine?
just I have a question. I have a meeting on scheduled. Do we have a meeting scheduled for next week?
The 18th.
Okay.
We do.
So-
Yes,
Yeah,
our
with
next
the
meeting
CPC.
is
17th.
same time, 17th?
Yeah, next Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Next
Oh,
Wednesday
it's
night.
not the 18th.
Correct.
In one of the
17th.
emails, it was the
One of
18th.
the 18th. We're gonna double check, but it should be the 8th. It
It's
should
the
be
s-
the
If it's
17th.
Wednesday, it's the
meeting.
17th.
Yeah, that will be our next meeting, 7:30 PM. And
Thank
if
you.
this
6:30,
format,
sorry,
6:30 PM
6:30 on
And
the
it's just-
17th.
on
Correct.
17th. And if this format works, we'll continue with that.
Yes.
So I'll take feedback on the format too.
Thank you all.
You'll take
Motion,
feedback
do we
on
take
the-
a motion to adjourn?
Yes, we did.
We did?
And second the motion?
You made a motion
Bonnie
to
is
adjourn?
Bonnie Anderson has seconded the motion. Let's go around the room. Janet, please.
Janet, yes.
Patricia,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
Alden,
Yes.
Rick, yes. Thank you, everybody. Great meeting.
It's a very fast one.
That clock is still on
All right.
daylight